Olá a todos, bem-vindos a mais um episódio do Marketing Digest. É verdade, grande episódio, temos duas entrevistas muito sumarentas para vocês. Sarah Harmon e Michael Leander estiveram connosco à conversa no Congresso Nacional de Marketing em Lisboa e vocês não vão querer perder, é já a seguir. Olá a todos, sejam então bem-vindos a mais um episódio do Marketing Digest. Eu sou o Diogo e hoje estivemos aqui no Congresso Nacional de Marketing em Lisboa, grande congresso organizado pela APPM, e já sabem, se ainda não subscreveram o nosso podcast, podem subscrevê-lo através do podcast, do RSS do podcast, ou mesmo também em tv.appm.pt. Se ainda não são associados, façam, é fácil, tinham a oportunidade de cá estar hoje, não estiveram, também não perdem nada porque nós trouxemos as melhores entrevistas para vocês. Vamos então a isso. Começamos então com grande entrevista pela segunda vez no podcast Marketing Digest. Sarah Harmon esteve connosco, ela que é responsável do LinkedIn em Portugal e Espanha. E tivemos também com Michael Leander, ele que é um marketing speaker, entre outros projetos, um dos quais ele vai falar. Sem mais demoras, vamos a isto. Olá a todos, bem-vindos então a mais um episódio do Marketing Digest. Agora estamos com Sarah Harmon, outra vez este ano, é verdade, Country Manager da LinkedIn para Portugal e Espanha. Sarah, switching to English now. Thank you for the lovely presentation, as always. It was lovely to hear you again here in Portugal. How are you finding Portugal again?
I love Portugal. Every time I come here, I want to spend more time. I'm actually thinking of spending the summer here, so, you know, very attractive country for me.
Lovely. Sarah, in your presentation and according to the conference theme this year, what CEOs want from CMOs, you gave a presentation about how to turn a CEO into a social animal.
Right.
Why and how is that related to the theme?
First of all, because a CEO, you know, a lot of the things that we see at LinkedIn, what is the biggest blocker, right, for a CEO to become a social animal? Most of the time, it's fear, right? It's the unknown. It's, you know, am I exposing myself in a way that's different from what I've been doing typically? Because they're used to self-promotion, right? And they're used to promoting their company. But these kind of mediums, social mediums, are a little bit more, feel like they don't have as much control, when really you do have a lot of control. So what CEOs want from CMOs is guidance, helping them get over the fear factor, helping them take baby steps, helping them craft their message, helping them decide which channels are the correct channels. Where do I need to be? Where am I going to have the most impact? And most importantly, how am I going to lead the rest of the employees in this social conversation?
And how is that important to the company?
Well, it really has three big impacts. Like, what dividends does it pay off? First of all, it goes directly to the reputation of the company. So your brand is directly related to the reputation of your CEO or your leadership, right? So you can't, you think about Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Tim Cook now with Apple, Jack Welch for GE. You know, that image is very much intertwined with the image of the company and relates to the credibility and the trustworthiness of your brand as a marketer. But the other thing it can do is elevate your talent brand, right? So how attractive is your talent brand to future talent and your current talent? And it can go directly to the bottom line. So we know that after polling salespeople, that they say that it is so much easier to get that first call or to shorten my sales cycle if my company is more engaged in social marketing and in social communication.
That's the ROI they're looking for.
That's the ROI, exactly.
And how do we convince them? How do we convince our CEOs?
ROI. So you have to speak the same language as a CEO, right? So you need to be able to say, this is my strategy. These are the KPIs. These are how I'm going to measure success. And you need to do that over time, right? So you need to give them and say, here's where we're starting, right? If we're talking about, like at LinkedIn, we talk about talent brand index, right? How attractive is my brand in terms of talent? Or how engaged am I with my audience? So audience engagement, you can also measure that, like how much I'm interacting with my audience, how much they're interacting with me. And then you can also measure things like time to hire, sales cycles, average size of deal, before and after your campaigns, right? Before and after you do each step of the strategy. That's the language CEOs talk. So marketers, and we've been talking about that at the conference, need to be much more data-driven. They can't go in and say, oh, we're talking about reputation. You know, those things that are kind of they don't feel, exactly, very conceptual, they don't feel measurable, but you can measure those things in very concrete terms and in business terms. And I think that's the most impactful for a CMO and a CEO.
Well, and you offered even a playbook to us, right? Talk us about that playbook and how can we get it?
Okay, so the playbook, you can download it from our webpage. So it's the Executive Social Playbook. And it gives you concrete, very clear steps on how you start, how you engage your CEO in this conversation. So how you talk to a CEO about being engaged in social media, which channels to choose, how you can use social media to augment your talent brand, how you can do marketing B2B in social mediums and how effective that is, how you can increase your sales and do social selling through social media. And it also gives you orientation on where do you start measuring, where do you start from and where do you want to be strategically. So I think, it's a very basic playbook. Like, we all know that this is kind of a new thing for many executive leaders. So it's very common sense advice.
It has all the steps.
It has all the steps. So it just kind of walks you through the things that you need to do. That's the playbook format.
Sarah, one last question, which just crossed my... What about LinkedIn in Portugal? How is it doing? How is everything going here?
Things are actually going really well in Portugal. And one of the things that I like when I come to Portugal is it seems that the messages land a little easier. Like, I know that it's kind of a scary concept and things are starting more slowly, but I see that the Portuguese business community is much more receptive to a lot of the things we're saying. One of the things that I do find, and I would encourage your viewers, especially from the marketing standpoint, is that this is so new and so kind of not even on the radar of some marketers and some executive teams and human resources, certainly, is that you need to start having conversations within your organization and budgeting for these things. So if you're in budgeting processes now, you need to think about social media tends to be cheaper than like television and even print media, but you need to think about how you're budgeting for these channels, what talent you need. Do you have the right talent? Do you have community managers? Do you have executive communication specialists to help your CEOs? Those are the kinds of things, the step that I'm missing. So message is landing, enthusiasm is there. The next step is actually getting your resources in place in order to take action.
Lovely, Sarah. Once again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you again in Portugal.
Absolutely.
Summer.
Maybe summer, maybe next year, maybe this fall.
Who knows? Thank you so much, and we'll see you in a bit. Olá a todos, bem-vindos então aqui mais uma vez no Congresso Nacional de Marketing, agora com Michael Leander, um marketing speaker, entre outros projetos. Vamos ter que falar inglês, por isso, Michael, hi. Switching to English now. I was just saying marketing speaker, but you're much more, right?
Well, I should hope so. I think being a marketing speaker is really a stupid title. But I think what it means, if you're good at it or if you have stuff to share, is because you've had a lot of experience, practical experience in marketing. So I think that's what makes a good No, I didn't say I was good, but I think I say that's what makes a good marketing speaker, in my opinion. Yeah.
Lovely. Well, Michael, first question: the theme of the conference. What CMOs want from? What CEOs want from CMOs? What would you say?
I think, first of all, it's a very, very interesting theme, and it's a fantastic conference, once again put up by APPM with a lot of support from all the right people, and that's exactly why it's so good, because the CEOs showed up in a panel and started discussing, and the CMOs as well. And I think what is interesting about it is that I think the CEOs are going to become aware that they can actually demand something of their CMOs. That means CMOs have an opportunity to redefine their role, because often they're just the creative people, just the people who do the brochures, just the people who do the business cards and so on. Obviously not in very, very large corporations where they do TV advertisements and all of that, where branding is big, but in all the other businesses, I think marketing doesn't get the respect that it really deserves. So here's an opportunity for CEOs to say, aha, I can demand something more of them, and then sit down with the CMO and the C-suite group and talk about how do we define each other's roles moving forward.
Lovely. Well, that begs the question, are CMOs changing then?
I think they have to change, because technology is such an important component on what you need to be able to do to engage and to engage your audience and keep your audience engaged. So they need to change, they need to be more technology savvy, in lack of a better word, and they need to be able to manage technology as well, because technology is part of the everyday operation in any marketing outfit. So yes, they're changing. I think the current group of CMOs in Portugal and elsewhere are struggling a little bit with that change, and that's normal, I think, given the background that they have. But the new breed of CMOs coming in, who are a little bit younger and more technology savvy, will be a completely different animal, if you will, than the CMOs of the past.
Lovely. Michael, you talked a little bit about Romy. I would like for you to explain what Romy is. And of course, you give some 9 tips. I wouldn't say for you to give all the 9 tips, but some of them, or most important one that you would say.
Okay, so ROMI, or return on marketing investment, is one of them, and really it's more or less the same as marketing ROI, but it's about being objective driven for a CMO. It's not about ideas and campaigns and the number of activities and all of the deadlines that we're always faced with. It really is about being objective driven and understanding that if you have a €1 million budget or a €1,000 budget, the question isn't how you can spend them. The question is, how can I spend them and get a multiple back? So whether that multiple is 5 or 20 or 40, that depends on industries and so on. That's what return on marketing investment all about. And just to add to that, what it means is to know your numbers, right? So you think of yourself more as an investment, agent, than as a marketer when it comes to the money aspect.
Well, some of the tips, or the most important ones?
So I think some of the most important ones.
Beg of you, please.
Three or 4 of them. Well, one is obvious to everyone, I think, yet we forget it all the time, is to care about your audience. But today, we need to know more than just the color of their hair and their age and so on. We need to know about their preferences. We need to know about past behavior. We need to know about potential future purchases and so on. So collecting information about audience that enables you to communicate with them in a relevant way, not irrelevant to the brand, but relevant to the individual, I think is very important. As a result of that, again, is technology a necessity? So I think CMOs and businesses in Portugal, they need to embrace technology to be able to do things like customer lifecycle marketing automation. That sounds like super, super advanced. It really isn't. It just sounds really complicated. That's another thing. The third thing is social media. I mean, let's not get our hopes up too high. I've been saying this for years, and at one point people would beat me up for saying that it's not what it's hyped up to be. And I think now a lot of businesses are realizing that this whole like syndrome that we've seen over the past 5-6 years is baloney for many brands, not for all brands, for many brands. So when it comes to social, it's about the engagement, right? It's not about the likes, it's not about the volume that you reach, but it's about reaching the right people in that channel as well as everywhere else, and be able to have a meaningful conversation with them in social media. I didn't say this because it was one of the tips that I took out, but the real-time aspect of this is really interesting, right? So I'd say 2 things. Real-time engagement with audience is very, very important, just like APPM, you guys do it on your different channels. But add to that the customer service experience as well. And I think that's merging into marketing along with that whole CIO or the technology aspect as well. So that's one more tip, and I think the last tip is this thing about culture of experimentation that many businesses don't have. So create a culture of experimentation, allow people to try stuff and allow them to fail, and demand of them that they learn from their failures and that they somehow share that information internally as well as with agencies. And in my ideal world, any business would, let's say, allocate 10 to 15% of the budget spent on marketing as well as people's time inside the company as well as maybe for the agency as well. At time they say this 10-15%, do with it what you want as long as you experiment.
Yeah.
Try new stuff. You were mentioning yourself earlier, A/B split testing. Maybe you can improve if you run an A/B split and so on. But I think also Portuguese brands, if they get that culture of experimentation going, people won't be so afraid to make that darn mistake because they think it might cost them the job, right?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't, because nobody has the right answer in marketing. Not the gurus, not the very, very PhD guys or whatever. No one has the answer. Everything has to be tried and tested before you know what actually works.
Michael, lovely. I would just say for you to talk a little bit about AIDA or AIDA Lira. Was that right? AIDA Lira? AIDA Lira?
Eight lira or lira or however, depending on the level of Italian. Well, 8 lira is basically taking the old AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action model, and then changing it up a little bit to fit with social media. So we remove the A from AIDA, so we get attention, interest, desire, and we add to that lira, which is like, interaction, recommendation, and action. I would like to remove the L as well, but then it says 8 IRA, and I don't think that's a good idea. But in these terrorist times, you don't want to do that. But essentially what it says is the like is irrelevant, because it takes a split second to like something. You don't even think about it, especially if they say, please like. And if you notice how many just say please like without giving a reason why we should like it. So I'm thinking the model here is good because it emphasizes the last step, which is the action. And it makes people think about, what do we want with our social media presence? Is it to get likes, really? Or is it to get something else that leads to some sort of action, whether that's monetary or not?
Michael, we've learned as well about Marketo. Can you talk about what Marketo is, and that is, well, what are you doing with it here in Portugal?
Well, it's a little bit premature actually to talk about Marketo, I think you pronounce it Portuguese, in Portugal. But essentially what we want to do is to be a knowledge sharing entity that has a presence in Portugal. In fact, I've decided to put the headquarters here in Portugal and staff up and hopefully be able to help some people who otherwise couldn't get jobs, get some jobs, even if we have to invest in their training, because what we're doing is not rocket science. It's actually something I think most people with a sense can learn. But eventually what we want to do, when I said Marketo will be headquartered in Portugal, is also to serve the other markets where we do training, different kinds of conferences, seminars, plus a huge program coming up for online what do we call it? On-demand training. So we're looking at producing this also in Portuguese. I can't say too much about it, but it's on the way. And for bigger markets like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and so on, obviously in the English content. And that's pretty much all I can say right now. I know that was a politician answer, but
well, it's something, and it's something we can hope for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Michael, thank you so much, and I hope to see you again. Por nós, até à próxima.
Por nós, está para baixo.
Perfect, Michael. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good to see you again.
Lovely.